up your engine! This is a 2021 VW Atlas. And it's big, there's no arguing that. Biggest Volkswagen I've ever been in. Big wheels, 20 inches. Big space inside, big trunk. Especially when you have the third row seats down, but when they're up, you should have room for passengers in the third row. And they made this for Americans, even cup holders for the third row seats. Now, Volkswagen may be a German company, they were designed for the American market. They started 2018. It's a newer design. They're making what they feel Americans want. A big SUV. And it seems to be working out for them because this and the smaller one, the Tiguan, so far in 2020, has accounted for 60% of the sales in the United States. They know Americans want SUVs, so they're building them. And like any SUVs, they come configured in a lot of different ways. You can get a $35,000 one with the turbo 4-cylinder engine. This is a demo, so of course it's the top of the line. This is a $50,000 V6 all-wheel drive. As we look under the hood, got a big old Volkswagen engine, and you know what I like about it? It doesn't have one of those stupid beauty covers on it. The Germans have realized they're a joke. They don't serve any purpose. You get to see the engine. And one thing I do have to say, look at the working room. Normally Volkswagens are tight, hard to work on. There's a lot of working room on this baby. Now we get into the nitty gritty. This V6 puts out 276 horsepower and it's connected to an ultra smooth 8-speed with overdrive Tiptronic automatic transmission. Being a full-size SUV, it's not a racehorse, and it's also not a gas miser. You're gonna get in the teens of these things is gonna be your average gas mileage. I've been driving this thing around. I'm getting about 18 miles a gallon in it. Yeah. You know, they're gas hogs. All big SUVs are gas hogs. It doesn't matter. I'm talking about real world gas mileage, not the fantasies that they give you out. Now, the 4-cylinder version is rated at higher gas mileage. Of course, that's rating. It's a 4-cylinder turbo. You give it a lot of gas, you push it, you put a lot of weight in, you're not going to get that rated gas mileage. You're still going to end up getting in the teens if you push it hard. It's a 4,500 pound vehicle, and the gross weight is 5,900 pounds. That's almost 3 tons. You can't get heavy, giant vehicles and get fantastic gas mileage. It's just against the law of physics. Unless you put an electric motor in them. Now, as you can imagine, in a full-size SUV market, it is crowded, it is ultra competitive. There's so many choices out there. Even with this Volkswagen, you can go from $35,000 to $53,000, depending on which one you want to buy. As a full-size SUV, it's got a lot of things going for it. Very spacious, a lot of high technology. Now, as you can see, it's got an excellent backup camera. But the strange thing is, it's got the backup camera in the center, and it's got its main readout in the front here. Now, personally, when backing up, I would have rather had that screen in the front here. Be better to look at because I really like this front screen. Watch as we drive. You're getting your map and directions right in front. So instead of having to look over to the side to see it, you just are watching the road and you can glance down and see your directions. A very good design. But truthfully, I would have rather had the backup camera over here than over here when you're backing up, because then you get it all in the line of sight. Now, one of the first things you notice is it's a very quiet vehicle. It doesn't make much noise. And it handles fine for a big SUV. Now let's see what kind of power it has. Step on it. It goes. It's not particularly heavy on the acceleration. Very smooth shifting. Do realize this is a 4-wheel drive vehicle and they all do accelerate quite slower unless they're an electric vehicle, in which case they go faster because they have a motor at each wheel. Now as you drive around, hey, this absorbs the bumps. There's no arguing that. I could get in this thing and drive to California, no problems at all. It's got a comfortable ride and it's pretty high up in the air too. Took me a while to get used to because I'm used to low to the ground vehicles and motorcycles. Now if you want, you can have fun with the transmission. You can put it into a direct shift one. As you see, when you whack it to the side, then it goes to manual, where you can shift the gears all you want, play around with them. Or you can just be lazy and put it in drive, let the computer do all the shifting. Of course, it's got the fancy sunroof on it. And here's the German, they got a nice windscreen too, so you don't get that noise. And it also keeps bugs from getting and whacking you in the head. It's got freezing cold air conditioning. Now, they are making them in Tennessee, so they learned a lot about America. Finally, the Germans have ice-cold air conditioning. It gets really hot in Tennessee. Now, as we close the door, you can see it's a pretty solid vehicle. And as you can also see, there's a lot of room in the back seats. Got the full AC and heat here. You can adjust it yourself. This isn't, oh, could you please turn the air conditioning up or down for the people in the back? They can do it themselves. And they get all the electronic additions here to put their stuff and plug it into, including 112 volts. Well, they say 115. Now, they're very comfortable seats. You can see the middle person's going to have to be thinner than the side people. And if you're not using it, it's got a nice armrest with all the cup holders and everything. The Germans have learned about Americans. The LED lighting's a nice touch. I mean, really, look at the room in the back. You can put up the third row seats, and if you're not using them, look at all the space you have. Now, they started making them in 2018. This is a 2021. So I can't really give any long-term history of the vehicles because they haven't been around all that long. I haven't seen any particular problems yet with them. And I would say, if you're going to buy one, I'd go for the V6. I would not go for the four-cylinder. Volkswagen's had history of problems with their four-cylinder engines. You put them in a bigger vehicle, you're straining them more. And yeah, the turbos can make them go, but I stick with the six-cylinder engine myself in this thing. Because the four-cylinder has about 40 less horsepower and a turbocharger. And even with the six, this is no stallion. It's no race car. Now, I know most SUVs are not, but this is quite a bit slower than its competitors. Now, my grandfather taught me how to fix cars. He was a mechanic too. He'd be rolling over in his grave when he found out people were paying $50,000 for a Volkswagen. But back in his days, they only made little Beetles. He'd be shocked if he got in one of these things. If you compare this to the early Volkswagen vans, they were relatively big inside. Nothing as big as this, but they were relatively big inside. But they handled like buses. The wind blew them off the road. This is a heavy, stable vehicle. You feel safe in this thing. There's no arguing that. And like any full-size SUV, it's got the old roof racks. You can stick all kinds of stuff on if you want. There's plenty of room inside. I couldn't see any reason why, but. And it's a very stylish car. Fancy dual exhaust on it. Got a trailer hitch. And if you bought the fancy one like this, it can tow up to 5,000 pounds. Got all-wheel drive. Nice pulling ability. It can tow quite a bit. 5,000 pounds is nothing to sneeze at. I guess it beeped in agreement. I didn't do anything at all except lean on the car. Maybe it's more intelligent than I give it credit for. Now, many people have rated this thing. Give it about 8 out of 10 stars. I tend to agree. Not the perfect SUV, but it seems quite capable. I've been a mechanic for 52 years. There's no way I'd pay $50,000 for any car. I always buy them used. Save a bunch of money that way. But if you're forking out for a brand new SUV, from 35 to 50 grand is your choice with these things. And if you've been watching me for any length of time, you know I'm generally not a fan of Volkswagen at all. But I do have to say I was pleasantly surprised by this Atlas made in Chattanooga, Tennessee. The Germans seem to have done their research on what Americans want, just like ages ago, Toyota sent some Japanese to California to study what Americans want in cars, and they came up with the V8 Lexus, the first ones that they made. They saw, what do Americans want? They made it, and boy, look what happened with that. It exploded into Lexus. And now, sure, the full-size SUV market is a very crowded market. It's a very capable vehicle as far as I can see driving it around. I have yet to see any problems with these, any major problems. Now, they've only been making them since 2018, so they haven't been around all that long. But it's not like there's some Fiat that's falling apart the minute you get it. They seem pretty solidly built from the one I'm driving around here. And for my customers who've bought the earlier versions, 2018. Some people are Volkswagen fans, and they're going to go buy a Volkswagen. One of the reasons they buy this is because they like Volkswagens. It's very smooth, it rides nice, handles perfectly fine. Hey, they're not race cars. You want them to ride nice. If you have a car that really handles well, guess what? It rides poorly. I've been in $200,000 cars that, man, they handled like a dream, but they rode like crap. You'd hit the bumps, you'd feel them all. This thing, with its weight, which is part of the deal, cancels out a lot of the bumps. Also cancel out a lot of the road noise. They're quiet on a highway. When you're in the city on all those potholes, they go through them pretty good. Scotty didn't totally dish a Volkswagen. Cars are more or less fading away. Maybe Volkswagen's realizing, since 60% of their sales in the United States this year so far were these and the smaller Tiguan SUVs, they might be onto something. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, Remember to ring that bell.